Discovering Asian dramas back in 2018 was an enlightening moment for me, and I've never looked back. I enjoy talking about them just as much as watching them. So much so that I decided to create a podcast with a heavier focus on Chinese dramas, but passing through Korean, Japanese, Thai, and Filipino dramas. Welcome to the Tea and Soju Asian Drama Podcast, your corner for drama talking. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Tea and Soju podcast. I'm your host, Liliana, and in today's episode, we are taking a little trip into Japanese dramas. Now, let me start off with a little disclaimer. My knowledge on Japanese dramas is quite limited, but I've watched a few and I wanted to share my thoughts about them. I do actually have a full episode planned with a guest who's much more versed than I am when it comes to Japanese dramas. So that'll be coming out, I'm not sure when, maybe next year, because that's still in the planning stages, but definitely look out for that one. That will definitely be a much deeper dive into Japanese dramas. Now, another little disclaimer, I can only talk generally with the dramas I have watched in mind, and so take what I say with a little pinch of salt, so to speak. But I hope you can still find some recommendations from some of my favourite Japanese dramas. I have also watched some Japanese BL, but I have purposefully left that out of this episode because, like I've been mentioning, I think I've mentioned this for a couple of episodes now, but I do have a BL episode planned, and that's just going to involve all the BL dramas that I've watched. Well, not all of them, but the ones that I've really enjoyed. So I've left the Japanese BL dramas that I've really enjoyed in for that episode. So, I'm actually also, in this episode, I want to try something a little bit different. I find that maybe in my descriptions of dramas aren't the best. I get very rambly, and I am not the best of persons when it comes to describing dramas. So for this episode, I'm going to use the MDL, so my drama list, drama descriptions. Now, sometimes their descriptions aren't great either, but we'll see what we can do for this episode. This episode will have no spoilers, so please listen ahead and don't worry about any spoilers or anything like that. Also, do let me know after listening to this one and after listening to, previous episodes of mine, which format do you prefer? Do you prefer like my own rambly description of the drama, or would you prefer that I use the MDL description and then just go into my thoughts about the drama? Like I said, this is only my ninth episode, so I'm still trying to work out, what's the best format and what, feels more comfortable, but also what you guys want to listen to. So do let me know which format do you prefer, and I'll be more than happy to take your feedback on board and see which one to use going forward. Now, with all of that said, let's jump into the episode. So actually, even before I started Asian dramas, or even before I knew what Asian dramas were, I used to watch quite a lot of anime, and not because I went searching for it. So my partner now, he used to watch anime, and when I first started dating him, you want to know the interests and whatnot, and he said, it came across in one of our conversations, and then he suggested an anime to me, and I was curious, so I went in and tried that. So I thought it would be quite fun as well. At the very end of the episode, I just want to mention some of my favourite animes from back when I used to watch much more of them. I don't watch any. I would say the last one I watched was probably a year ago, which is a shame, but there's just so much to watch, and anime just kind of gets pushed to the side nowadays for me. So yeah, I thought it'd be, fun, since I will never probably talk about this again, and I thought it'd be quite fitting to fit it into like the Japanese episode. But anyways, in theory, my natural jump actually should have been from anime to J-dramas, but that wasn't the case at all. I went into Chinese dramas, and I think mainly the reason for that is that back then Japanese dramas weren't very readily available, and even today actually they are still one of the harder Asian dramas to get a hold of, and to get a hold of subbed. So I think that makes it a little bit more difficult. I think half the time that's probably why I don't watch as many Japanese dramas, because they are a little bit harder to access. However, I think that's been changing, and mainly with the platform Viki. I think Viki has been picking up more and more J-dramas, and even Netflix has picked up a few as well, which, I tend to go with Viki for J-dramas just because there's a wider variety. But, I sometimes will, go old school, so to speak, and use fan sites and get subtitles directly from them. So, yeah, that's one of the things with J-dramas, sometimes I find anyways. But luckily they are becoming more accessible, which is great. So I also think, for me personally, J-dramas are, very different from any other Asian drama. And actually, I say this for just about every single Asian drama that I talk about. I think that each country has its own, weaknesses and its own strengths when it comes to dramas. And they all do things slightly different. I mean, when it comes to China, their dramas are always going to be very different because of censorship. And that's always going to play a role within that. Japanese dramas are always going to be, slightly different. I actually find that Japanese dramas tend to push, the mold a lot more than other Asian countries. But I also believe, and this is from the dramas that I've watched, that they look and feel slightly cheaper quality-wise. And what I mean by that is that you'll see, old tech being used and stuff like that. And in general, the quality just looks a bit, older. And I'm not sure if that's just the dramas that I've been watching or if that's something that happens across the board. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I can only really judge it by, what I've watched and the dramas that I've watched, because I can't really base it on anything else. But I do wonder, and I've never been to Japan, so I wouldn't know if this is the case, but I do wonder. So in a lot of dramas, you'll see really old cars being driven around and everything, and that sometimes makes it a little bit hard for me to believe when they're talking about a CEO or a rich person in a drama, or they're portraying that character and then they're driving, a beat up car or a very old car, but not old in classic kind of way, old, if that makes sense. And I do wonder, is that how it is in Japan? If you do know, let me know, because I'm quite curious. I don't know if that is how it is over there. But with all of that said, I don't think it necessarily takes away from the dramas, but it does add a layer of oldness to them, if that makes sense, which sometimes doesn't work for me, because I I don't do older dramas. And even saying that, actually, the oldest drama I've ever watched is a Japanese drama. So, there's some nuance there for that statement that I just said. However, I think they definitely make up for the quality with the quality of the story itself, and I think that other Asian countries probably couldn't quite pull off as well the stories that Japan does, and I think that's just a strength to them. I go to different countries for different things, I think, in terms of drama watching. And I think that will probably become quite clear within my recommendations, but it's very, very true. So another thing about Japanese dramas is that if you search for them on my drama list, they are listed with their Japanese name, which can be a little bit more tricky to locate them. However, if you type the English name into Google, you can easily be led to all the information about each drama, whether that may be on MDL or, other sites. Just for ease, though, and in hopes that I don't butcher up any more pronunciation than I have to, I will be using the English name for each drama and trying my hardest not to butcher too badly the actors and actresses' names. But I will leave both the English name and Japanese name written in the description notes for this episode. So, you'll have both there and you can search for it, whichever way you prefer. With all of that said, let's dive into some of my favourites. I will say I can't even remember which Japanese drama was my first. So I couldn't even begin with that one. So we shall start with one that is short, but it's so sweet. And that is the 2019 drama, Hey Sensei, Don't You Know? So this drama is only 6 episodes of 25 minutes each. And it stars Baba Fumika as Hanai Ao and Akasu Iji as Kidorichi. And basically the description on MDL is as follows. One of the most admired and beloved romance manga writers of her time, Hanai Ao has dedicated her entire life to her work, from sun up to sundown. She pours 100% of herself into what she does, and it shows, with countless fans clamoring for her latest work. Hanai is at the top of her game. As one of her best romance writers in the country, you'd think Hanai would be experienced in the world of love. But in reality, she's never even had a boyfriend, a fact that her editor likes to point out frequently. Completely fed up with her constant nagging of her editor, Hanai decides to take a walk, completely unaware that she looks like she's just survived a typhoon. Completely indifferent to anything but her work, Hanai has never bothered with her appearance, at least not until she catches her reflection in a shop window and has to do a double take. Feeling inspired to make a change, Hanai walks into a nearby salon where she's immediately greeted by Richie, a charismatic and charming stylist who promises to give her a look she'll love. Struck by Richie's charm, Hanai soon finds herself falling for this man. She can't seem to resist. Lucky for her, the feeling seems to be mutual. With love in the air, it's only a matter of time before Hanai finds herself experiencing all the joys of a first love. But her strict work ethic becomes a problem. Can a workaholic keep a steady relationship when she frequently forgets her boyfriend even exists? Okay, so that's the MDL description for this drama. Also, guys, if you can hear noises in the background, my dog seems to be having, fun over there by the end of my little recording space. And I don't have the heart to send him out of the room because he just seems to be enjoying himself. So I'm just going to let it go. And hopefully there's not too many noises to, catch on the microphone. But so to me, this drama is so freaking adorable. Like I loved watching these two together on screen. I really actually loved Hannah. Her character starts off as this like really awkward, she doesn't really like to be out, but she is definitely a workaholic, and she goes on this little journey to balance her life out a bit more. It did bother me slightly that she needed to have a relationship to kind of have that awakening, but the fact that she chose to walk into that salon herself, and get that makeover herself at first, that was on her. That was not him. So I really liked that from the get-go, it was her choice. So that really, really made the drama a lot better for me. I also loved the fact that she was great at her career. Like, she was shown as focused, and she's doing really, really well in her job. And I liked that just because she got into a relationship, it didn't mean that her career stalled completely. Actually, it made her career better in terms of, her writing got better because she was more inspired, because she was experiencing, relationship and all of these things for the first time herself. And I just think that, that part of it was done really, really well, because it could have been that, now she's in a relationship, she's no longer good at her job or anything like that. But that was never the case. She just learned to balance out her work with, now I'm working, okay, now I need to stop working and I need to go, and live my life a bit. So I really, 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 really enjoyed that. Actually, one of the other things I also really liked was at some points I thought that the second female lead would go in a direction of the usual second female lead would, but she never did. And I really liked that. And also the fact that the roles in this are almost reversed, because in dramas men tend to be the higher achievers, the workaholics, and women tend to be the more demure, less productive type of characters. Not always, but that does happen. And in this drama it's almost completely the opposite. Of course, Richie is still very, very good at his job. It's just a different job, and he knows how to balance out his life. Whereas, Hannah doesn't. But she is the more successful one. So although their experience in the relationship is vastly different, I also didn't feel like there was too much of a power imbalance, because Hannah was very successful at her job and that never really changed. Also, finally, this drama is only 6 episodes, so you could literally sit down and watch it all in one sitting, which I think I did. I didn't think I waited. I binged this one all in one go. And I find these shorter dramas are just so great for that, to just literally sit down and, do a little binge. Actually, on, for the most part, Japanese dramas tend to be the shorter of Asian dramas that I watch in terms of episode count. I think they tend to sit for the most part at about the 10 episode mark, which works really well for their format. So I think that is a plus, definitely. They don't push too much aside, too long on the episodes. So I really like that. Anyways, back to this one. I ended up scoring this one an 8.5 out of 10 on MDL. It was just so sweet and easy watching. So that was Hey Sensei, Don't You Know? And that's actually available, at least in my region, both on Amazon Prime and Viki. So you've got those two there to, if you want to check this one out. The next drama up on my favorite Japanese dramas would be the 2010 11-episode drama called Mother. So the description, this drama basically stars Matsuyuki Yasuko and Ashida Mana. The description on MDL is as follows. Elementary school teacher Suzuhara now decides to abduct Mishiki Rena, one of her female students, after discovering that she is being abused by her mother. Fleeing Hokkaido to Tokyo, the two experience various events together along the way, with now serving as a substitute mother and Rena finally experiencing familial love for the first time. Now, guys, that's what MDL, the description is, and that description actually does a pretty good job, but it literally just scratches the surface. The surface of what this drama is about. And I will not sugarcoat it. This drama is hard to watch, but not in a bad way. Like, it, more in a way that it rips your heart out. It deals with very, very, very difficult issues, abuse. So this one will not be a drama for everyone. And, trigger warning, it does deal with abuse. It does deal with abduction. It does deal with adoption, with, mental struggles. So it is heavy. It is a heavy drama. And I will caveat, my whole description of it with that. It is very heavy and it's definitely not for everybody. But I just could not do a Japanese favorite drama episode and not mention this one, because I believe that this one is probably my highest ever rated Japanese drama. It's also the oldest drama I've ever watched because it's from 2010, but the acting in this is just phenomenal, like top tier acting, especially by Ashida Mana, who plays Rena, the little girl. She's so, like, I could not believe that such a little girl had such, acting power. You could just feel everything, and like even in her eyes you could see so much emotion. She was literally she was captivating to me on screen and often stole like the scenes from the grown-ups. My focus was on her a lot of the time. So, like I mentioned, the story is truly, sad in many moments. But it also has, this underlying beauty of basically two souls finding out what choosing your family is and, building that bond. And I believe that, the love they learn along the way is just so beautiful to see. Like I said, it is probably one of, if not my favorite Japanese drama that I've watched up to now. So much so that I actually scored it a 9 out of 10, which, if you listen to my MDL episode either last week or the week previous to this episode, that's pretty high on my, on my rating scale. And I will say it is just it is heart-wrenching, but it's also a beautiful drama. Acting is great. I will say, though, this one is a little bit hard to find unless you look really hard. You know what I mean. I was really lucky to have a friend who owned the DVD and they streamed it for myself and a couple of friends. So I will say watching this is as a group watch, it made it a much better experience, and I definitely needed the moral support while watching this. But I'm so glad that we watched it. We sat down and watched it because it's definitely worth it. Like I said, I absolutely loved this drama. I couldn't, recommend it enough, but with the caveat that it does deal with some really hard issues. So please take that in mind. And if that's any triggering to you or anything at all, just, stay away. There's other dramas. Anyways, so the next drama on my list is a 2028 episode drama called Marry Me. This drama stars Kumada Rinka and Seto Toshiki. The description on MDL is as follows. The story follows 28-year-old civil servant Akiyasu Shin, as he's chosen to take part in a new government program under the so-called NEET protection law. This project pairs government employees with NEETs as a means to rehabilitate them and reintroduce them into society. The problem is his chosen partner, Suwamoto Himari, was signed up without her knowledge. Will Shin end up winning her over, or will this arranged marriage be a bust? Now, when I first went into this drama, I thought it would be, a regular arranged marriage, sweet drama. And there was certainly those qualities, but there was so much more to this drama than I ever thought there would be. There was a lot of character growth, which I loved. I'm all about, journeys and watching those characters go from point A to point B and what their journey is and how they get there. And this definitely has that. There was a lot more of character growth done actually by the female lead. The male lead also had character growth, but I just found that the female lead's path was a little bit more challenging, and her character growth just struck me a bit more. But also, it just told like a beautiful story of dealing with loss and how we all sometimes need some help. I think it does explain in the drama what a NEET is, and I can't quite remember what it stands for, but it's basically someone who is a reclusive and doesn't interact with society at all. The program is meant to help them basically like be reintroduced into society. Especially, it's basically like people that are lonely and they shut themselves off from the world in their homes, and government wants to supposedly help these people back into the world. Into society. It sounds like crazy, but for this drama, it really does work. Like, I don't know if I could really put this, synopsis or this kind of drama anywhere else and make it work. But for some reason here, it does work. And basically, our female lead, this isn't too much of a spoiler because you find out pretty quickly. She gets introduced to the program. She gets signed up to the program by her grandma. So basically, the female lead was abandoned by her mother when she was young, and she grew up with her grandmother. Now, her grandmother has passed away, and this our female lead is like dealing with that loss, and she's basically shut herself in, her house, shut herself away from everything. And she has her cat, and that is her only company, that is her only interaction. And I don't think she quite knows at the beginning of the drama how to process like her loss and how to process, that her grandma isn't there anymore. And I think that's why I liked her journey a little bit more, because it showed that growth. And it was beautiful because it showed like the male lead's parents accepting the female lead into their family, and like there was a background story to them, and it's really, really nice. I really enjoyed this one, and I ended up giving it a 8 out of 10. So that was Marry Me. Again, this one is a little bit hard to find. I don't quite remember where I watched it, but I think it was through a fan site. That, provided it with subtitles, but I cannot remember where. Anyways, again, this one is only a very short little drama. So it's definitely one of those 8 episodes. So it's one of those you can definitely just sit down and binge in one go. And I don't think that this one is nowhere near as heavy as Mother is. Like, yes, it deals with the loss, but I think it does it, in a really, beautiful way. So I think it's an easier watch than Mother. But like I said, on the surface, it sounds super strange and like it wouldn't work, but there's definitely a lot more to sink your teeth into. And also arranged marriage. Like I think I've probably mentioned this. I am a sucker for arranged marriage. It's like one of my favorite drama tropes. So if it's arranged marriage, I will probably check it out because it is up my alley. So my last drama, and yes, I'm only mentioning 4. I do have a few more, but these were the ones that I really wanted to mention because they are probably the 4 Japanese dramas that are my favorites out of all the ones that I've watched. So yeah, for the last one of today's episode, it is the 2020 10-episode drama called An Incurable Case of Love, and it stars Kamishirashi Mone and Sato Takeru. So basically the MDL description is as follows. Sakura Nanase is a 22-year-old rookie nurse. She met Dr. Tendo Kari several years ago and fell in love with him. To meet him again, she studied hard and became a nurse. After 5 years, she finally meets Tendo again, but he has a totally different personality than what she imagined. Tendo, who is 33 years old, is commonly referred to as the devil at work. He is he is a level-headed perfectionist and often makes biting remarks to doctors and nurses. Sakura works hard to receive recognition from Tendo, and she also expresses her feelings honestly to him. Due to her persistence, Sakura becomes well known at the hospital, and she picks up the nickname of Warrior Chick. Meanwhile, Tendo becomes attracted to Sakura, and their romance ensues. So, I think at first I thought this drama was going to be completely trope central, which, don't get me wrong, it totally is. It is. But it's quite funny because, with the whole warrior chick, they kind of get her actually dressed up in a cape and a sword in some scenes to become this warrior chick, and it is very funny. And I quite like that she is she stands up to him. She is very much at the beginning of this drama so in love with him, and she's never actually spoken to him. She's only met him, and they have I think they have a 10-year age gap, so there is that, and they are very, very different people. But I love the fact that a couple of times of talking to him at the hospital, and she's like, no. You are actually, a devil, like everybody says. However, I think I just really had a lot of fun watching this. The male lead is a total Tsusandre, which is basically a cold male lead on the outside who on the inside is a total marshmallow. And you know the type of male lead that you only see, everybody sees that he's cold and mean, and then you start peeling back the layers and actually he's nice and kind, that type. And the female lead is like ever optimistic, bright character. So that is your classic like setup for sure. So if I was looking at this drama realistically, I would say on the surface it is very, very backward thinking. However, I just really enjoyed it. And sometimes that is enough. Like sometimes most of the time, I don't want to analyze my dramas in terms of, that's awkward, or maybe that is backward thinking. Sometimes they are what they are. They are escapism. And I just want to watch them for that reason, for them to be escapism. So I just really enjoyed it. I really liked how our female lead grew into herself. I loved the found family in the hospital of like the nurses all together, and how they, helped each other out. I really, really loved that aspect. But also I quite liked the cases that they resolved in the hospital and the patients, and that like how that was woven into, the main romance of the story. On a deeper level, this drama was about like finding yourself for sure and reaching that passion for your job. I just really loved the main couple in this one. They worked well. Their chemistry, even when they're bickering, like their chemistry is great. And you gotta love that, because for a drama like this to work, the male lead and the female lead have to have bomb chemistry, and they have to do it. Even if they're arguing, they have to have chemistry, and these two definitely have that. So that works really well for me. I loved like how they went from bickering to friends and then eventually lovers, and how, the male lead by the end was a completely different person. But mainly, I just laughed so much throughout the whole of this drama. And that is just a good thing. When a drama can make you laugh and take you out of, if you're having a stressful time or whatever, and you can escape into that drama for that little bit. I think when a drama does that, it's just nice. And this one definitely did that for me. So all in all, I gave this drama an 8.5 out of 10. So that was the drama Incurable Case of Love. And this one can be found on Viki. So I gave you 4 dramas, 2 very easily accessible and 2 not quite so accessible, but they are definitely worth the trek, to finding them. Let's put it that way. So that is all for my top Japanese dramas. Of the ones that I have watched, those are definitely the top 4. I don't have too many, but that's something I would love to change. Like next year, I want to watch more Japanese dramas, more Thai dramas, and definitely more Filipino dramas. I've only watched, I think, 2 Filipino dramas, and I liked what I watched. So those 3 are the 3 countries I really, really aim to, by the end of next year, have watched a lot more. So if you have any recommendations, please send them my way, and I'll be happy to check them out and see if I can find any that I'll be happy to watch. So for the last little bit of this episode, I thought it would be fun to just look back on some favourite animes, because if I don't do it in this episode, I'll never do it. And while I was, thinking back on my favourite Japanese dramas, I just loved it. And I wanted to mention the animes that I loved way before I loved, Asian dramas. And I'm not going to go into detail about them or anything like that. I'm just literally going to list some off that I enjoyed. Of the ones that I finished, I think among my favourites are, and the more popular ones, the more well-known dramas are probably Fairy Tail and Bleach. Both of these are great animes. They are completed, I believe. Bleach, I'm pretty sure, was completed, and now they've came back with another sort of season, I would call it, which I probably might check out, because my partner is a huge Bleach fan, so I might, check that out with him. But yeah, I just always love like the intense friendships that are built in animes, especially in the fantasy dramas. Like, for example, in One Piece, I am so behind on One Piece. One day I will get back to it, but like those are some intense, forged in, the strongest possibility friendships that are never going to budge. And I just love that so much. But yeah, I have actually gone on to also watch and enjoy I did give a try to Bleach, the live action movie, but it just wasn't quite as good as the anime itself. It was still okay, but like, the anime is where it's at for sure. This is quite an interesting point. I don't do horror dramas. Like, it doesn't, I don't know. I have not been able to watch them. However, one of my all-time favorite animes, and I binged the heck out of this drama, is Tokyo Ghoul, and that's so bloody and so like horror, and there's blood everywhere. But I binged it and I ended up really, really enjoying it. It's probably one of my all-time favorite, animes. So I had to mention it. The one other that I think I watched this one a couple of years ago. And I went through all of them, and that is the anime Sword Art. I can't talk now. Sword Art Online. I loved this one, and mainly because I really, really loved the main couple, but the concept was pretty cool, like getting stuck inside a game, and then if you die in the game, you die in real life. I just really, really liked the concept. Again, the friendships that they built to exit the game. Overall, it was, a good anime, and I really enjoyed it. Another one of my favorites. I know I'm listing more animes than I am, dramas, but it is what it is. I had to mention some of these. Another one of my favorites has to be the anime called Twin Exorcists. That's how you say it. And the only thing about this one, I loved it overall, but I felt like the ending wasn't quite an ending, if that makes sense. And that is a little sad to me, because if you're not going to have another season, and goes for animes or for dramas, please, if you're not going to have another season, just tidy it up, because it feels like I don't mind an open ending if I know like the characters well enough to know what they would do. But if you end it where that arc isn't quite finished, then I get a little bit upset at that, because I feel like it isn't finished. So yeah, that's always a little bit sad when that happens. Now, albeit on top of all of these animes, I think one of my very, very favourite ones has to be one that I think is less well known, but maybe it's just that I don't know anybody who's watched it, and that is the anime called Ancient Magos Bride. I love it, but the ending wasn't quite an ending either. But for this one, luckily, I've recently found out that they plan to do a season 2, and it's meant to come out in 2023. So who knows? That may very well be the anime that gets me back into animes, if that makes sense. I will definitely, I think, be checking the second season for this one, because I just really, really love it. It's very, like, fantasy heavy. All of these are fantasy ones. They're all fantasy animes, but this one just has, I don't know what it is about it, but it's like it almost has like a steampunk vibe to it, the way they dress, and it's the vibe of the anime is just different, and it just hit me, and I binged it. Really, really, binged the heck out of this one. To this day, I can still vividly remember, like, the posters for it and some scenes in it, because I just really, really loved it. So yeah, that was all for the animes that I've watched. That was just, a little aside because I thought it would be cool to mention those in the Japanese drama episode. Okay, that is all for this episode. I hope you liked it. Like I mentioned earlier, I will definitely do another episode more in depth on Japanese dramas later on. So if you've got any questions, please send them my way. I will try to research, or if not, ask my guest about it on that episode later on. And also, please let me know what you thought about the format of reading the My Drama List descriptions. Is that better? Does that work better? I'm not sure. I think it works well either way, but I would definitely love to know what you guys thought about it. What are some of your favourite dramas? I'm gonna basically do this thing. I read the question before I read, what I was supposed to say. Basically, I want to do this thing that at the end of this episode, because with this podcast, I also really just want to get conversations going about dramas. And although I just sit here by myself and, rattle off things, I would definitely love to hear back from you guys. So I'm going to try and start this little thing at the end of my episodes, especially ones like this, recommendation episodes, or, talking about certain dramas episodes. 2 little questions, and hopefully you guys can, get back to me on those. Like I said, I will go through in my little outro. I will go through my Instagram and where you can find me, and I'll always leave that link in the description. So this week's questions, or this episode's questions, are: what are some of your favorite Japanese dramas? And have you ever tried them? As in, have you ever even tried Japanese dramas before? So yeah, that is my 2 little questions. They should really be written the other way around. Like, have you ever tried Japanese dramas? And then the other question should be, what are some of your favorite? But look. You should. You've been listening to me for a couple of episodes now. You know how it is. So yeah, let me know, and I'll see you next time. This has been another episode of the Tea and Soju Asian Drama Podcast. I'm your host, Liliana, and you can come and chat to me on Instagram at Tea and Soju Pod, all one word, and on Twitter, tea_soju_pod. You can also email me at teandsojupodcast@gmail.com. I'll leave everything linked in the description notes. See you next time for more Asian drama chatter.